What's up, guys, boys and girls? Okay, we are live. So I'll just wait for a few people to hop on here. We're going to talk some different things today. Are live. Oh, I better turn that. So I'll just wait for a few people to. There we go. Let me get that situated. I should probably turn this down. All right. Hey, Vicky, what's up? I really didn't share this in too many groups today. If other people want to share it, they can. I always catch heat for sharing my stuff, but either way, I'm going to continue to do it. So I kind of just wanted to talk some different things today. Give me a second. So I know I've been touching on this whole paranormal situation. But before I go into that, I was going to tell you guys you should check out the I've Seen Bigfoot DVD. We did this 2 years ago. I shared some of my stuff. Here I am. It's pretty awesome. It's got to do with my region, namely northeast or northwestern Pennsylvania, western New York. It's called I've Seen Bigfoot. The person that has it right now is Peter Weimer. If you Google I've Seen Bigfoot or whatever, you could check out check the DVD out. Everybody's always asking what's a good Bigfoot thing, this, that, and the third, but check it out. Just chilling, finished up last night's video, very interesting. Yeah, it took a lot of people by surprise. Normally I share into a lot of paranormal groups. I kind of got away from the sharing in the Bigfoot groups. All people do is bicker, So what I talked about last night, I wanted to kind of follow up on that. And I wanted to talk about some alien things and some experiences that I've had. And this kind of goes way, way back. Okay. So, I'll start by saying my mother's brother, he worked for the government. He was a nuclear physicist, and he worked at INL, which is Idaho National Laboratories. And he was kind of in the shadow government, you would say. He worked there for 35 years, 30 years, something like that. Toward the end of his term, he was kind of blackballed. There was a whole situation that went on. And my uncle, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Star Wars program. He actually helped develop that. They're defense satellites up in orbit and stuff like that. He helped do that. There was a few businesses that they were involved with. His name was Tom Spezialy. He actually, in the beginning stages, it was shut down by some agencies, and then when he got in with the government, developed this whole Star Wars program, which was awesome. So he used to tell us things, but in-depth stuff, he would always say, I remember when I was a kid and he'd be talking about it, he would say, if I tell you, I'd have to kill you. So it was interesting stuff. But he did say that aliens were real. That's one thing he did say. I remember they used to pick him up in a helicopter and fly him to DC, these big choppers and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. It was surreal, Smartest man I've ever met in my life. I don't think he stopped reading You know, there was books in my grandmother's house from when he was a kid still piled up in a corner. I'm talking like 400, 500 books. It was unreal. He just had a vast knowledge of things. And anyway, he was like blackballed from the government. Nobody really knew why. He never really talked to us. I mean, his salary was like $300,000, $400,000 a year. They lived in a $400,000 home. All kinds of stuff. You know, he was my uncle, great dude. And then he couldn't like get a job anywhere. He couldn't get anything. They like really blackballed him. And I mean, to go from being a nuclear physicist, he had to, he got an intern job. He was writing for Time magazine. He did that for a little while. And he wasn't really satisfied with that. And finally, he got a job making like 50 grand a year, which is a kick in the stomach, you know, from what you're making before. He was like a college professor, so that's kind of what he did. And then magically one day he had gone for like a doctor appointment, and then the next day he came home and he was found like dead. So it was really, really odd. Like the family was like up in arms. We tried to do a lot of research and we didn't really get anywhere. And it was kind of like this hidden thing going on. So there was things we knew, and you know, but our whole life we've had like alien encounters. I remember when I was a kid, I'd be laying in my bed and I would see this stuff in my closet move. And I would always tell my mom, like, you know, I seen this or I seen that. But when you're young like that, nobody, that's just water under the bridge, okay? Um, thanks, Vicky. Denmark, how you doing? So I would remember seeing these things, you know, when I was younger. So my mom told me, you know, she said we seen a UFO when we were kids, like the whole family and a bunch of friends, and you know, people tell you, but you really can't believe it. They used to hang out in a place called like Goose Shit Alley. It would be like where everybody would drink, you know, in the 60s and 70s. So a bunch of them seen this UFO like at a really low hover. They even told the police about it, like this whole situation, right? I never believed it. I never thought much about it, you know, whatever. Until I was like 15. I lived at another residence here in Dunkirk, and we seen this thing hovering over the house. So the neighbor called us because they seen it hovering over our house. So we went outside. My father, my mother. I was like 15 at the time, maybe. My girlfriend at the time, the neighbors. There was like 20 people that were out in the street that actually witnessed this UFO. So we called the Dunkirk police, and the Dunkirk police came, and the lady across the street called the Air Force Base in Niagara Falls. And we were telling them what we were seeing. The cops showed up. The cops actually witnessed it and seen it there. It was there for like a half an hour. I think the I can't remember the cop's last name, but he knew my parents, and he's like, you know, Janet, I see it, but I'm not going to report it. He says, I'm not going to lose my job. Those were the exact words out of his mouth. Matter of fact, they went down by Lake Erie and watched it for like another 45 minutes after it went from my house north. Then he even came back and said, yeah, we sat down there and watched it. It was unreal, you know. And the Air Force Base said that they had some, how did they say it? Anomalous something on the radar, like a blip. And the neighbor was like, see, I told you guys, it's, you know, that's what we seen, you know. And the Air Force never wanted to follow up. The Air Force Base, that was all hush hush. But we believe they sent out a jet or something because we could hear it in the sky within like, you know, 20 minutes or so of the phone call. Our local paper, The Observer, showed up, and they wanted like a story from us. So our like family and one of the neighbors, we all like told them what happened, and they ran a thing in the paper when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15, something like that. I have the article somewhere, but I have no idea. I was actually going to go see if I can get some microfilm of it, like at our college, to show that, you know, that happened or whatever. So that was like my first, like, knowledge that they were real. Okay, but just prior to that, I was like 12. A friend of mine, Robert, well, he's actually like family, but we grew up on the same block. And this one day we were playing basketball up at the school, hanging out. We were walking home. There's a club called the Kosciuszko Club, and there's like a huge parking lot. Well, we get to the corner, and there's this fireball. There's this thing that goes streaking across the sky. It's silent, but it's huge, and it's this red fireball, and I'm telling you, it's 200 feet off the ground, if that, maybe 100. And it's going astronomically fast, and it's like, and we don't hear anything. And me and Robert like look at each other, we look at that, and we like, in my mind, the way it was heading toward the ground, I was like, that should be crashing. We should have heard a boom. We should have heard an explosion. The next thing I know, Robert and I come to it, and we're standing across the street in this parking lot. We're just standing there, like kind of like the situation with Bigfoot, just standing there coming to. And at the time, there was this girl, Kim. I could give last names, but I mean, you could even ask them, you know, if it comes to it, if somebody wants information, they can ask them. Kim's walking up. We knew Kim. Kim's like, Ryan, Robert, hey, how you doing? And we're like out of it. And she's like, what are you guys doing just standing there? We were just standing there in the parking lot. And I was like, I have no fucking idea. You know, like I even swore as a little kid, you know, I was like, whoa. So we ran home, got home. My mom was like, you guys look like you seen a ghost. And we told her, and you know how parents are. They're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But those two events kind of like started to change me. Nothing really happened after that until I moved into this house here in 2008. So in 08, I moved in here, and my mom was actually moving back from Arizona because my grandmother had passed away. So she was moving back. So when I bought the house, I was going to have my kid here and stuff. And I was like, well, Mom, I'm not going to have you go live in an old folks home. You know, live with us. You can do whatever you need to do and, you know, help out with the bills or whatever until figure out, you know, whatever. So she moved in, and my kid and them weren't really here because the house was being renovated at the time. And I didn't want my son around the renovations, you know, the drywall, the flooring, all that crazy stuff for like a whole month. And, so it was just me and my mother. So my mother was sleeping on the couch, and I was sleeping on an air mattress in the living room because there was nothing here, you know. And like the guys I had doing it were my friends, and they'd come over every morning. They'd work, go home, you know, that type of thing. About the only thing I had was a TV and cable in the living room. That was the only thing that was a little set up to just stay. So this one night, I'm laying in bed, and this I've really never told too many people. So I'm laying in bed, and it was like around 3 in the morning. I'm on this air mattress, and all of a sudden, like, I wake up. I mean, I wake up and I shoot straight up. You know, like a mummy sits like straight up, like that with their legs out. I never do that. That is like an uncomfortable position for you to just sit straight up like that really fast. And I kind of like looked around. I was like looking around like, you know, what's going on? What the hell's going on? I woke up in this like weird feeling, weird situation, right? So I hear like, it's like a hum, you know, like a turbine or this, like an energy hum, like a hum. It's like this hum, and I can hear it and feel it. Well, right out in front of me is my dining room area, and there's like, I have a black stand with like all these photos on it and stuff like that. And it's about 4 foot tall. All of a sudden, right in front of there, these two beings appear, okay? They're the color of, like, I don't know if you guys have seen Nickelodeon, right? The color of the slime, the green color. Okay, so two of them show up, and they're standing shoulder to shoulder. They're shorter than the 4 foot stand, so they're between 3.5 and 4 foot tall. They got really long arms. They're wider. Like, they're not real skinny. They're not your classic green, like people say, like the gray aliens with that pointy face. They've got like a rounder head, and it's like a plasma aura that they're kind of giving off. This brighter green. I could see their eyes. They're not super slanted or anything. I mean, you're talking 10 feet from me. You know what I mean? I'm looking at these things. They've got like, they're not super slanted. They're round but slanted. They're not like the ones you see in the books. So I get two things that happen. I'm like fight or flight. Okay. So instantly my fight mechanism kicked in because I was like, I'm bigger. Like I'm bigger than whatever these are. So I'm going to kick their asses. You know what I mean? So what I do is I go to roll over. So I go to roll over onto my stomach. As I roll over onto my stomach, I'm going to try to like pop up. You know what I mean? You flip over and you go to pop up. So that's what I went to do. I sucked my knees up and I went to pop up, but that never happened. The instant it took me to roll over, they were on either side of me. Okay, so now I'm on my bed on this air mattress and I'm in a fetal position like this. And I got my knees buried in the bed, a standard fetal position. My arms are over my face like this, and I can't move. Like I'm coherent to understand what's going on, but like I can't move. So I mean, I was scared, but at the same time, there was a calming effect. But I could hear them talking. Okay, so I could like hear them communicating. I couldn't see their faces, and it wasn't like I was hearing with my ears. I was hearing with my mind. I could hear the one on the left say to the one on the right, "I told you we should have killed him." So I think he was talking about me. The one on the right says, "No, we're not here to do that. He wouldn't like that." So, or what I was trying to figure out at the time, like I was in panic, you know, but later on I was thinking, who's he? Who are they talking about? He wouldn't like that. Answering to somebody. It was really weird. Right then, the one on the right takes his finger, because I felt it, and he touches my back, right on my spine, above like my right kidney, about that much higher. And as he touched it, I was out. I was out. Okay. I don't remember anything. Nothing. I don't know what happened. I don't know where I went. I don't know what they did, but I'm going to do the stories more. Okay. So in the morning, I wake up. I'm in that same fetal position. Freaked the hell out of me. I like turn over immediately. I bug out, you know, like it was real. You know what I mean? I had dirt on my foot, on my sock. I was in shock. Like I didn't know what happened. I told my family I didn't know what to do or anything like that. Okay. So a little while later, like I've had issues ongoing with like my hip for like a long time, you know, metal screw in there and all kinds of stuff. So I had to go for like an MRI because I had been having trouble. And I mean, I have trouble all the time. It's just something I have to deal with. Okay. So I go to this place called Jamestown Open MRI, and I go for this MRI because I hate being in the claustrophobic tubes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like an open one. It's wider. So I get in there, and he gives me this thing. He's like, here, hold this. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, you squeeze it if you like panic or you need to come out, and we'll bring you out. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, all right. He's like, here's your headset. Go ahead. It'll be out 45, 50 minutes. He's like, we're doing from your head to your waist, basically, this whole body MRI. Like, all right. So I was in there maybe about 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, like I was moving, the bed was moving, so I could feel like where they were scanning. And I got to like right about, I don't know if you can see that, right about like right under your chest here, like right there. And all of a sudden, it got like super hot. Like my back felt like it was on fire. I mean, like to the point where like I was being stabbed and stabbed and stabbed with like a hot poker. It was unreal. So I'm like just laying there, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. Like I gotta get out of this thing. And like I'm like, just stick it out, just stick it out, just stick it out. And finally I hit the thing. I'm like squeezing, I'm like, get me the hell out of here. It was too hot. He pulls me out and he's like, hey guy, what's going on? What's wrong? And I'm like, yo, dude, my back is on fire. So I don't know what's going on. He's like, well, lift up your shirt. I lift up my shirt, and my whole back is like reddish purple, like this whole red, like unreal. He's like, oh my God. He's like, just sit down. Let me look at the MRI. Just take a seat. So I sit down, and he goes in there. He looks at it, and he's looking through it, and he's like, oh, well, it looks like, you know, you're not supposed to have MRIs if you have metal in your back and stuff like that. But I have is way down low. So they never thought it would be an issue or anything like that. And he's like, well, it looks like you've got a piece of metal up in your back. And I'm like, what do you mean up in my back? He's like, well, way up around T, I can't remember what he said, but T is for your thoracic. He said T something, T6, some maybe. And I was like, well, how did the metal? He's like, well, maybe the screw or whatever broke. And I'm like, what do you mean? It traveled up my back? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't. What the? And I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, you need to go to the doctor and get that checked out. I'm like, yeah. So anyway, he's like, well, go home, be safe. If something happens, go to the ER, blah, 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 blah. Because supposedly if you have metal and you go through MRI, it could pull it right through your skin, okay? So a couple days later, I go to the doctor. I have to go see this orthopedic doctor, okay? I go see this orthopedic doctor. They take x-rays. He's like, yeah, there's like this piece right there. He's like, that screw down there is fine. He's like, there's no issue with what you got going on with the titanium. He's like, but you have something right there, and I don't know what that is. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what that is? How does it get there? And I had all these questions. At the time, I wasn't thinking anything about the alien encounter that I had had. I'm kind of like baffled, like, you know, what F is going on here? So he's like, all right, well, we could set it up for like exploratory surgery and try to get out and figure out what it is. And, you know, we do this like microscopic thing with a microscope and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, let's do it, whatever. So like, you got to do like a pre-op thing and get all ready. And so I go to do that. So I make the appointment, go back, and I go there, and they're like, oh yeah, you're no longer a patient. I'm like, huh? They're like, yeah, you're no longer a patient. And I'm like, why? She really never gave me an answer, except like she said something about billing, and I was like, well, my insurance covered it, and here's the bill. I have the bill that it was covered. Okay, so that took care of that. And she's like, well, the doctor has too many patients and blah, 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 and he's going to be moving to a new location from like North Street to wherever. And I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with me being a patient? Anyway, they like let me go. The orthopedic doctor would not be my doctor. That was crazy. Tried to go back and do like a follow-up appointment, like the office was closed, like there was nothing. And I found that like oddly, insanely weird. Okay, so I was like, whatever. To this day, whatever's in my back is still there because it was never taken out that I know of, and it was seen there on MRI reports from the doctors. So this is the crazy part too. Now, I had like the issues with the forest rangers and all these things going on, right? Where my cameras were taken down, whatever. As soon as that happened, I go back to my new doctor that I've had for like 8 years. You know, I go to my doctor. All of a sudden, I get a letter in the mail. We're no longer your participating provider. Blah, 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 blah. We can't blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I call there. I don't get no rhyme or reason why I can't be. The doctor told me it's because I asked for tests. And I'm like, because I asked for tests? What are you talking about? And what would happen is like, if say I go to my appointment and I like forgot something and I call the doctor and say, hey, can you schedule me for a test and send it over to like the hospital and I can go for a CAT scan or the MRI, whatever. That's what they meant by I asked for like testing. Well, isn't that what a doctor's supposed to do? And they were just like, yeah. Well, we can't. So like right now I have to go find another new doctor for this whole situation, you know, whatever. And I thought it was odd after that happened. So like, it seems like there is a way that people interfere with your life in ways that affect you. And it's not fair. Do you understand what I'm saying? And as far as that piece of metal being in my back, I was going to try to go to another doctor and find out like what it is or how it's there. And then I started thinking, could it have been like an implant, like an alien implant? Nobody ever wants to say that or think that shit. And you don't tell people this. You just don't. I mean, it's something nobody's going to believe you. Nobody. So it's like, what do you do? But I wanted to get it out there because it was one of the craziest encounters, something that happened to me. And this was all before like Bigfooting. This had like nothing to do with Sasquatch or anything. You know, this was just, that's when I realized and understood that aliens were real and people are being implanted. And it was odd because I could correlate some of the things that happened with aliens to the Bigfoot, because like that missing time situation, like it's happened quite a few times in my life to where, you know, I just end up standing there, like, you know what I mean? And I think it's really, really odd. So that's, you know, then I started correlating things together, and that's why I started to think that there was some type of, you know, alien presence, or not even alien presence, but this crypto normal presence. You know what I mean? That's what I'm going to call it from now on. Like your supernatural or whatever. It's not paranormal. It's not woo. It's crypto normal. And that you know, that's crypto paranormal. Put them together, okay? So this crypto normal situation is what's been like changing my life, and it's crazy. Like you don't really want to follow it or pay attention to it, but you're almost forced to. You know what I'm saying? You don't have a choice. So like I start reading books and stuff, and here's one that I was going to share with you. It's by Mason Winfield. He is a local author here near Buffalo, New York, and he does a lot of things. This one is the Paranormal Almanac of Western New York. I was just going to read a couple of things out of here, and you know what I mean? Let me see. Yeah, very scary story. What's up, Mike? What's up, Kristen? Like Starchild, right? I'm just reading the comments, guys. What does that say? Tired phase of the moon on face will get a doctor to pull it out for you. Contact them. If you could put me in touch with that, I'd like to find out about a doctor. I tell you that, because it's just, unless they pull it out, it's still there, 100%. So like in this book, he breaks it down like I'm really close to Fredonia, New York, and this is like the Canandaigua Creek feeds through Lake Erie. In Dunkirk and Fredonia, on a hill not far from it, presumably on the eastern side, was a circular entrenchment about 200 feet across. It was called Fort Hill. This is where like a lot of the Indians lived, and mass graves and weapons and all kinds of stuff were found. They talk about Sinclairville, New York, where they found like mound builders and all kinds of cultural stuff. It's crazy. The cemetery sleepers were buried unusually, seated in rows and facing each other. Now, this is crazy stuff. You know what I mean? They talk about Cattaraugus. They talk about Cassadaga. I'm really close to Lilydale. You guys know Lilydale? You heard of Lilydale? It's like the spiritual capital of the world, okay? And I'm 10 minutes from there. And I've been there, and let me tell you, there are some crazy-ass people there. There are some people that are really psychic, okay? I'll give a shout out to one lady, but she left out of there because she said a couple people were just doing it to make money. Her name is Kathy Bell. Psychics that I probably know of. She's on point with everything. But it says Cassadaga, Lilydale spiritual significance could be very old. They call it the Tender Lakes. It's a spiritual community framed likewise a complex of earthworks. These were all the earthworks that I used to talk about. This guy says, I've seen drawings of them, and it's no wonder people think they have been made for a peace zone for the ancient Great Lakes, even a necropolis or a city of the dead. It's very weird up through there. And Lilydale from my research area is probably 8-minute drive up into the hills, maybe 10. And that whole area has like this folklore and tradition, because I believe that the mound builders that the government talks about aren't mound builders. I believe they're Bigfoot. And I believe that they live underground like that, and they were building these caves. So that's why I was starting to put two and two together about the Bigfoots burrowing into these dry creek beds, because we were walking in the woods the one day, and on film I have this huge hole. You could fit a recliner through it, and it goes into the hillside, right? And I didn't think anything at the time, but later on I was like, maybe they're going in there and they're living in these banks. You know what I mean? Well, then I heard that guy Don Donaldson or whatever their name is from Killing Bigfoot one night on TV, and he said the same thing. So that got like my light bulb turned on. So I'm trying to do a lot of things here all at once, but when you talk alien and you talk all these crazy things, it's unreal. The author's name, Mason Winfield. Thanks, Torben. Third phase of the moon. I've heard of that. Yeah. To think we're only planet with living things. Yeah, actually talk about planets. They just found 7 new planets. Did you guys see that? I guess, see, what you're not told is what I've been told from people, that the Earth has tilted again, and that is why we're getting some of this odd weather. If you notice the way the sun sets in certain places and certain things, and I mean, it's been like 50, 60, and 70 here in Western New York for February. That doesn't happen. And it's just such a big picture. It's a broad scheme of things when you got to add things together, the planets, the star system, all these things like I talked about the other day, the ancients knowing the solstices, and they built these rock buildings or huts or labyrinths, and they would have holes. Like in the hole, when the sun would hit, it would shine through. It's like, why were they building that? They're land workers. Indians are farm workers. All these people that came here, they knew the land. They knew the seasons. You know what I mean? You tell me a farmer that don't know when the solstice and the seasons and all that happen, right? So why were they building these things? Just like the guide stones in Georgia. They have this thing where the light shines through and boom, boom, boom. And I believe that is to direct the sunlight to hit a specific, maybe a ley line. And that could possibly open these portals. So maybe they knew that that's how it worked. And maybe they were opening these portals and these stargates and all these other things that people talk about. Because let's face it, I'm not the only one talking about it in the Bigfoot world or anywhere else. There's one guy, M.A. Marzulli. He talks about all kinds of stuff all across the board. I mean, there's so many talk shows that are paranormal that, touch base on all these aspects. And this whole book here, though, talks about Sheridan. Sheridan, New York is 8 minutes east of me. They talk about so much stuff in here, all across Western New York, from Buffalo. They show ghost files, things that are supposed to be haunted, the wars, like so much. I mean, Mason really did his homework when he did these books, which is awesome. There's a couple more that I have. There's something, Western Door. Mason Winfield does this one, Western Door. And it's really intriguing because there's this one part in there that he writes that he calls it the Western New York Triangle or something, and it's located in Mayville, New York. There's this like one road where the woods are like, I don't know if it's haunted or what the whole situation is, but he says that. And now I started to relate this to Bigfoot, because he said that like hunters won't go in there, people won't go in there, and like if a hunter does go in there, like there's been reports that people shoot their deer, the deer go running in there, and then the hunters follow it, and right at the end of the tracks is like the blood, and the deer's gone. There's like no deer. So when I heard that, I was like, that relates to Sasquatch. And I've had people, report Sasquatch in Mayville, New York. I mean, Mayville from my research area is 15 minutes. So it all correlates. You know what I'm saying? What do we got here? It is very interesting. Those planets are 450 trillion miles away. You need Millennium Falcon to get there. Yeah, well, not about getting there. It's just the fact that they just finally discovered it with their, Lucifer telescope. It's crazy. The people at the North Pole, the ones who have little huts or skids, they say the Earth has tilted. Yeah, you can tell it has. If you look at your horizons, look at the way your sun sets, look at the way the temperature movements are going. There's so many things. Look at the jet streams. They're all screwy. They don't tell you this on TV, guys. You got to go look this up. If you have a question, go look it up. That's the best way to find your answers. You know what I'm saying? Another book I was going to just share. You guys probably all have, read it. David Paulides. Dude, he was a cop, and I'll give you the breakdown. Basically, he started searching into missing people, and he started doing a lot more. This one even has pictures in it. Grown-ups, children, all kinds of people come up missing, and what he found is that there's like clusters of people that go missing in certain areas, and a lot of times it's around these national parks. Could it be that these national parks were left there as national parks for a reason? So A, they can control it, and B, they knew what was there. Was it, Bigfoot? Was it aliens? Was it these vortexes of high energy? We don't know. But it seems odd, you know what I mean? That they've, like, who picks and chooses? Like, oh, I want that to be a national park. Or, oh, that's, you know what I mean? You have to kind of look deeper, like, why? Why did they leave that as a national park? Why not, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Let's see. Those places where magnetic force is wacky. Dr. J said they've been affected by one of those places that day. Yeah. Anything with that type of magnetic field can affect your body with no problem. No one, far as I know, has ever said the sundial was off. So not sure if we're really off kilter, planet-wise. Social media moguls paid Paulides to research that. Right. So, I mean, I love to research Sasquatch, right? Bigfoot. If somebody paid me to do it all the time, why not? That doesn't mean it's going to impede your work. It might impede the answers we get. They may get the true answers where we just get a book kind of outlining stuff. You know what I'm saying? Later, Torben. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to, touch base on a few things, talk about a few things, and get people to understand that there's a lot more going on than we know about. And I didn't really want to talk about aliens and stuff, but I had to share my encounter because I told people the other night that I would, so on and so forth. But, I just try to push people, not push them, but give them the information to, leave them enlightened in a way so they understand kind of like not only what I've been through, but the whole situation as far as like how I made the transition and what I think Bigfoot is. I don't even know what it is, but what direction my research is going. And you understand? It's not easy to talk about because people think you're crazy. People will be like, oh, well, yeah, you're nuts. I mean, look what they do to Dr. Johnson. I'm not trying to be like that. I stay grounded. If that's what it takes, okay, whatever. But I'm going to question everything. I'm still going to do the right research. I'm still going to try to correlate things and do it scientifically if possible. It's just, you wouldn't believe the amount of researchers out there that are really on the paranormal side that won't say nothing about it. Not at all. They won't talk about it unless you're one-on-one. They don't talk on the phone really about it. But if you meet them, or if you're talking, some other way, they'll say, hey, this is what happened to me. This is what I know. This is what I'm researching. But as far as people in the public know, they're just your everyday Sasquatchers. out there banging trees, doing the same thing over and over, you know. And the problem is a lot of people get like finding Bigfoot on TV. They get that like, oh, that's Bigfooting. No, that's TV. That's like, you know, entertainment. That's money. That's what it is. Polity stuff made me scared to go out in the woods and national parks. I don't know if it should make you scared, but it should make you aware that there are more things than Bigfoot out there, you know. There's reasons Bigfoot attack people. You catch them off guard. It's kind of like you, like I always come back to this. If you were to come to my back door and I'm in my living room, I'm going to see you, right? Well, I'm going to flee out the front door. That's kind of how they do it in their home turf. But if you are sleeping in that chair and I come in there and I get right on top of you, you have two options. When I wake up, I have two options, fight or flight. And if you're too close to me, I can't take off, right? So the human is actually pushing the Bigfoot for that response to fight back or throw things or whatever it may do, even kill people we hear of, you know, whatever, or kidnap or whatever. You got too close unexpectedly and you force them, you kind of force their hand. That's the way I look at it. We're forcing their hand. It'd be like you. If you're in your recliner and I bust through your back door and you're sleeping and I run up on you, what are you going to do? Fight or flight. And if you can't get away, you're forced to fight. And that's the same thing the Bigfoots do, in my opinion, in my honest opinion, because I've never seen a dog man, nor do I want to, because they're vicious. And, you know, just look around the world. Look at people talk about Bigfoot, chupacabra, this, that, you know. There's so much all over the globe. It's like, how do you keep track of it all? You can't. All you can do is try to piece it together and figure out what's what and how they're all correlated. The Bigfoot, the aliens, you know, the different types of energies. And, you know, I've been talking to a friend of mine about a certain type of energy, and I don't even know if he wanted me to say anything, but I'm not telling you who, but looking into like 0 point energy and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that we don't know about. You know, many people have been telling me that they have this Lucifer telescope and that it, like, you can see like a war going on in our skies that we can't see, that we don't know nothing about, like these EBs. It's like extra biological entity or whatever they call them. That's what the government really calls them, EBs. And they use this telescope to like see them. And that's why you have to be, if I'm a university and I want to go use it, I can't just go use it. I have to like register and get a specific time and a date. And I think they do that more as a control thing, because so much, you know, is going on. They don't want the public to know. There was also a guy that I listened to years ago. His name was Phil Schneider. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he talks about his dad being in the government and that the government is working with aliens and that we have an alien called Val Valiant 4. And he's like 400 years old or something. And he's been working with our government to create things. And like when he came on the scene is when we had this explosion of technology, things like Tupperware, all these certain things that like just came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? We were this like primitive society building these steel cars and whatever, and all of a sudden shit just changed. But he talks about building underground bases in like Dulce, New Mexico. And the one day he was talking, he said that, so they were like 2 miles down or something like that, or a mile down, and they were digging to build this base, and it was going to connect certain tunnels. So they were carried up and down in this cart like miners. So they go in, they go down, and they're almost to the bottom or whatever, or at the bottom. He steps out, and on the other ledge, they see like an EB, and it's like this alien thing, and they knew nothing about it. And all of a sudden, so he reaches for his Walter PPK, pulls it out, bam, 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 hits it a couple times, and he says the alien like takes his hand and goes like this in front of his chest, and this blue beam of light shines out, hits him, opens him up, cuts his stomach open real bad, burns him, burns off like 4 of his fingers, all this stuff. And he was with a military guy at the time. And the military guy, this Black Ops military guy, Green Beret, pushed him back into the cart and hit the button so he'd go up. And ultimately, the Green Beret lost his life by doing that, protecting the Phil dude. So Phil would travel all around the world, talking to people, sharing, specimens of things, all kinds of crazy shit. And as his story would start to get out, they ended up finding him dead in his apartment, and he was like strangled, which is crazy shit. So it's just something to think about. You know what I'm saying? And we got to start correlating this whole consciousness together. I'm going to Barb's local habitat, so if you don't get too drunk. What's up, Rick? Yeah, I'm actually going to be hopping off here, guys. It's been about an hour. I just wanted to talk about a few things, get back into the Bigfoot situation, but I wanted to, just share the alien experience. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the MIB, Lale. So there's a lot, if you didn't catch it from the beginning, just watch. You can hear about my experiences, things that I've gone through. This week, I got some updates. I'm going to be going in the woods because it's going to be like 65. I don't know when, and I sure as hell am not telling people, when and where, so other people watching can know, because that ain't happening. So we're going to be hitting a private piece of land probably, and checking it out to see if they're coming back through from Ohio and PA, because spring's a little early this year, so I think it's throwing their pattern off. So, but I won't know that until June or July, because last year I found them in a certain location in July. If I happen to find them there in June, I'll know that they correlate with the weather also. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to tie things together. It's kind of hard, but actually it's a pain in the ass. But yeah, I shared the books. I shared the DVD. Go pick it up. I've seen Bigfoot. It's just a nice little, thing. A lot of great people in it. I don't know. Let me see. How long was it? 90 minutes. About 90 minutes. A lot of people tell their stories. Larry Batson's in here, Bob Gimlin, myself, Steve Culls, the Legend Hunters, which is Ryan Cavallini and his people, Dave Rupert, a few other people, Mary. They tell their stories. www.IHaveSeenBigfoot.com, or you can just Google it and it'll come up. Check it out, get it. I think it's like $15, but I'm out of here, guys. I'll get back with you. Like, sub, share, support. Peace.